It is very important for the patient that his family meets him often enough because going through rehab is not easy for him. I have seen all over the world that the meetings of the family with the patient while he is in the rehab is usually a nightmare. Some treatment centers opt the policy of not letting the family meet the loved one for the first month. It is now a routine,
Yes.
and that every patient who is admitted in Willing Ways has a meeting with the family the very next day. And these touch and go meetings are actually 12 in number, and we conduct these meetings in first 15 days, and then there are supervised meetings, and we start moving to the next goal, which is intervention data presentation.
The touch and go meetings are usually conducted in patient's room, and the family is not supposed to sit during the touch and go meetings.
Sometimes in these touch and go meetings, you'll see a storm of emotions coming from patients.
Family can suggest that you can ask your counselor or your doctor, and they are going to help you in this regard. It is a therapeutic meeting. We need to see the interaction of the family with the patient. Rather, it is a family disease, and we can see the elements and the ingredients of this illness in the family also. The last and the final thing that they have to communicate is that they are going to help him in only one thing, and that is getting rid of the drugs and having an abstinent and sober life. We have to believe that our loved one wants to quit, but he is helpless and he is hopeless at the same time. So we have to provide him help and the hope. So our policy in Willing Ways is to be open, be honest, and be transparent. Ultimately, we see honesty is the best policy. It works very quickly, and there is a therapeutic change very quickly in the patient.
Welcome. The show is You Asked For It, and the forum is Willing Ways Lahore. We welcome you on every Friday on this show. The participants for today, Dr. Sadakat Ali, CEO and the addiction psychiatrist. With him is COO of Willing Ways and the addiction psychologist, Mr. Abdurrahman Sadakat, Ms. Amna Nawaz, who is the clinical psychologist, Ms. Ramsha Khan, the occupational therapist, and Ms. Shumaila is our deputy director and the clinical psychologist. Ladies and gentlemen, today's show is very pivotal in the sense that whosoever is going through a rehab program, he has the option of getting an outdoor treatment, but there are different protocols for that. Usually, the patient and the family opts for the indoor treatment. And the indoor treatment could be of different durations. It could be as short as 21 days for the detox, or it could be for 42 days, then going on all the way up to 100 days. Now there could be two possibilities. Some of the rehab centers don't allow the family and the patient to see each other often, or maybe they give lot of gaps between the patient and the family's interactions. Here in Willing Ways, how it goes about, how is it done, how long do they meet each other, which family members can see him, where do they see him, all the nitty-gritty of how this interaction and what are the therapeutic effects of these interactions between the family and their loved one in the rehab. I will ask Dr. Sadakat Ali to please enlighten us first as an overview, and then we will discuss the different facets and phases of these interactions.
It is very important for the patient that his family meets him often enough because going through rehab is not easy for him. He is in an alien environment and he is going through a big change. So he has to be supported by the family. But I have seen all over the world that the meetings of the family with the patient while he is in the rehab is usually a nightmare. and the rehab center professionals always have some kind of scare about it, and they feel that when the family will meet the patient, he will cry or he will beg or plead or he would like to quit the treatment, and they don't know how to handle him in that phase. No family knows automatically how to interact with their loved one who is in addiction, because patient starts using drugs very secretly, and then after some time it happens that he goes into addiction, and one day the family comes to know, maybe after 4 or 5 years, that our loved one is addicted to alcohol or drugs. So the family lags behind. The patient is ahead of the family in dealing with the day-to-day problems he faces in addiction. He learns how to collect money, he learns how to dodge his family members, how to tell lies to make it convenient for him to use drugs, how to deal with the drug dealers, and then with other friends who also use drugs, and how to face the consequences if he happens to be in a police station. So with the passage of time, very secretly he learns the tricks to continue with his drug use, and one day when the family comes to know, and they are shocked and they are in anger, and they don't know how to handle this new situation, but still they think that they can handle it alone, and that also very privately, because there is a lot of shame which does not allow them to share it with the other family members or extended family members.
They are in denial and they think that the problem is not as much as serious at the other people are think that, and we can manage at home. I think so.
Somehow it has been seen that for centuries, rather for thousands of years, family members think that it is their job to now manage this, although they are so naive that addiction is happening in the family for so many years and they don't have a smell of that. But once they come to know, they try to control the patient physically, or they try to have some kind of angry behavior with him. They want to threaten him, and sometimes they like to bribe him. So they try so many ways, and we broadly divide these methods into two things, that is provoking and enabling. So when enabling and provoking is continued, the addiction thrives on that.
No results.
With no results, rather addiction is strengthened.
Yes.
And one day the patient happens to be in the rehab with the family pressure, and the family comes to meet him, and the family is devastated by his reactions, because he wants to go home immediately, and as soon as an addict comes into a rehab center, he starts building a case against the rehab center.
Yes.
So the family doesn't know how to answer certain questions, and family needs to learn a kind of interaction that is going to happen with a plan in mind. They should go into the rehab, and they should first of all learn how to answer his questions, and if at all they want to ask some questions, those questions should be appropriate questions that family asks the patient. So it's something that the rehab professionals need to teach the family members as to in what manner this meeting with the patient will unfold, and they can predict certain behaviors and prepare the family ahead of time as to how to answer his questions.
So you think that it sounds like as if the patient is the challenger and there is an arena, there is going to be a boxing match in which he is going to punch his family, and the rehab people are like referees or umpires.
These punches are usually emotional kind of punches, and the patient who comes into the treatment center under some kind of pressure because he has recently done something gravely wrong, and then he is under obligation to enter the rehabilitation center. So within 24 hours, his drug level in the blood is lower than his usual blood level, and he starts developing the craving for the drug. Although he is medicated in the rehabilitation center, but his separation from his lovely drug is so intense, and there is craving in his mind that he is going through all the time, and it is so strong a craving that then he listens to no logic, and he creates a scene with the family. He tries to do something to get out of the treatment center.
Family needs a proper strategic learning for the meetings, which starts from the touch and go. We later elaborate that, and then supervised, and then unsupervised, and then free flow, in which family and patient will meet for some period of the time outside the rehab.
My point is that initially, when the patient is under distress, he thinks that the family is no more his accomplice or his well-wishers. They are bad, and here in this center where they are, in the rehab center, they are all villains. So he is reacting. Does that happen?
That, I mean, despite that, it is often comforting for the patient as well at the same time. Despite the fact that he does not like their family members at that moment very much, but it is comforting for them to meet them, to have some sort of family around him every day. He has an option to meet.
It's because that he is dependent on the drugs, and he is dependent on the family as well.
Also.
So although he does not say it loud, but he depends on his family a lot. Family can be of great help therapeutically also, and some treatment centers opt the policy of not letting the family meet the loved one for the first month,
Why would they do that?
because they are scared that the patient will leave the treatment center. But we have gradually learned over a period of 40 years that the earlier family members see the patient the better, because the longer they remain away from their loved one, their feelings grow up and their emotional stance grows up, and after 1 month when they see their loved one in the rehab, it is the same story which could have been dealt with easily on the second day or the first day of the admission. They gradually learn how to communicate with their addict or alcoholic, and they also learn certain things which they have been doing wrongly.
It's similar to procrastination on the rehabilitation center's part. The more they procrastinate to make the family meet the patient, it gets more difficult. The earlier they do it, it's similar to how we do it in our conversations, that we procrastinate them and we make them difficult for ourselves. So if we make them meet the patient from the very first day, we develop a trust level with the family. At the same time, the patient also to some extent calms down, settles down, that at least there is some familiar face coming to see them.
That's a very strong logic Mr. Abdur Rahman has just stated, that procrastination doesn't make things easier for you. It will become more difficult for you to do the same thing if you procrastinate. But when early on the family members meet the patient, then somehow patient feels some kind of consolation, although he is still in the rehab center, but he has seen his family members at least, and family members leave early on in the beginning touch and go meetings, and it is from 3 to 5 minutes duration mostly. If the patient is pro treatment, then we linger on a bit, and then if the patient is anti treatment and says something against the treatment, then the family quietly retreats, telling the patient that we'll come tomorrow or some other day. And this kind of behavior is very important during the touch and go meetings, because patient learns unconsciously that when I don't talk against the treatment, they stay on, and when I talk against the treatment, they start to retreat. And as it is his earnest desire to have more time with the family, he unconsciously learns this new behavior, and for the first few minutes he does not talk about the difficulties going through the treatment, but he talks about general things, and then ultimately he comes back to the real essence of his topic, that I want to go home now.
I would like to ask Ms. Amna, you, because you supervise such meetings, the counselor or the psychologist goes along with the family to the patient, and where are these meetings convened?
The touch and go meetings are usually conducted in patient's room, and the family is not supposed to sit during the touch and go meetings, and even the patient tries to convince them to just sit with me and let's talk, because he wants to convince them to get him discharged.
We are supposed to do that. Treatment requires.
That's the
Yes.
protocol of the touch and go
Protocol of the
meeting.
meeting.
So this is how they convey unconsciously that
That
they
we
are following the
treatment,
rules.
and you
Yes.
should also follow the treatment protocols.
Sometimes
that's right.
in these touch and go meetings, you'll see a storm of emotions coming from patients. They, within the time duration of 3 to 5 minutes, they would beg, they would cry, they would sometimes scream, they would sometimes try to be
Grab hold of the mother.
yeah. So
Threat
they
is
will
really-
try all possible tactics in those 3 to 5 minutes. You'll be surprised to see how frequently they can change an emotion in a matter of seconds.
And they're quite predictable in nature as well. We can predict about
Because
the-
of your experience.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, they are pulling out all the arrows from the quiver,
Yes.
and they are trying to do that.
You need to give to the family the clue
Yes, that's
that when he says certain things about his condition or his pains or about his physical difficulties, family needs to deflect him towards the treatment center. Family can suggest that you can ask your counselor or your doctor, and they are going to help you in this regard. They should not try to push him around or coerce him or convince him, because it is their long time experience that when they talk to the patient, ultimately they end up having an argument or a brawl or a fight or something like that. So family would mostly respond with their body language or their facial expression, and family will talk less and listen more, and family would suggest that he must contact the hospital management, and they are supposed to help him in these difficult times.
Here we especially educate the family the possible problems of the patient. He can create, he can beg, he can cry, he can use manipulation.
If we tell the families these things ahead of time, family then understands very
Yes.
quickly, because they have been having interaction with their loved one in the past for many months or maybe many years, and they are convinced easily that he might create some kind of trouble during the meeting. There are 5-6 things that you need to consider before having a meeting, and you need to plan this meeting.
Yes.
And the ultimate goal of this meeting is not that the family is satisfied with the patient's progress, or the patient looks at his family and the courtesies are exchanged. It is a therapeutic meeting. We need to see the interaction of the family with the patient and then guide them for the forthcoming meetings in which they can change their behavior and help the administration or the professionals in the organization to treat their patient in the best possible manner.
And that's
So,
exactly why
the
it's actually good if the family shows any provoking behaviors, or if the patient threatens or begs, because that gives the therapist the opportunity to assess their emotional state, the family's emotional state and the patient's emotional state, and then create a treatment structure accordingly.
Because when the family enters the treatment center for the first meeting, they are going through many emotions.
Certain emotions, overwhelmed by certain-
they are relieved that he is no more doing drugs, but they feel defeated that they could not do it of their own. They have anger, they have embarrassment. Now
Anxieties,
the
sadness.
other people know that they had a problem like this, they are full of shame, but at the same time they are confident and hopeful also that they are going to benefit from the rehabilitation process, which is like a university now. It is quite different from what used to be 100 years ago. The rehabilitation center is more of an educational institution. Previously, the rehabilitation center used to be out of bound for the family. We take the family to the room of the patient, and the touch and go meetings are conducted right there in the lion's den.
Because treatment, family training is the part of the treatment now.
Rather, it is a family disease, and we can see the elements and the ingredients of this illness in the family also.
The reason actually we are able to do this is when the family comes to us with a problem, initially we meet the family a few times before admitting the patient.
Yes.
So the trust is developed, family has been proactively explained how
Yes.
to deal with the patient. Let's
Yes.
say you admit the patient today and you're having these meetings tomorrow. It's difficult to develop that trust within 24 hours. So we do it beforehand
We
in
gave
2-3.
the proper treatment structure to the family. These program will be the part of the treatment, and you should also learn from the training, and you have to come for the training. You have to start caring about yourself instead of patient. So these are the purpose.
This also shows the standard of treatment, whether they allow meetings early on or not. And the key words are honesty and transparency. If there is honesty and transparency in the rehabilitation center, they would gain the trust of the family very quickly.
I would chip in one more thing, probably competency as well.
Naturally, obviously, it's not an easy job
Yes.
to treat drug addicts and make them happy too.
And the
Because
family
we
also.
have to create a balance between the two things. We have to treat them, and we have to make them comfortable and happy. So we need to create a balance every day.
At the same time, family has so much difficulties, so much pain. They have grief, they have codependency. It should be treated in the treatment.
When I look back, it used to be very difficult. There are certain things that we now do unconsciously and with that kind of ease. But going back 40 years ago, it was very difficult for us to have a meeting before 15th day of the treatment. And before doing that, we used to make rapport with the patient, and we would try to convince him. And ultimately, one day when the family comes to meet him, and then he has the same story, he
Yes.
would say the same things. So the real thing is the family's position in the treatment, because they have emotional relationship with the patient, and they have been the providers mostly, and they have their influence also. And when they get a little bit of training from us, they are eligibly handling the meetings with the patient, and we don't come across these difficulties anymore. And only when we look back that it used to be difficult, it is now a routine.
Yes,
And
yes.
that every patient who is admitted in Willing Ways has a meeting with the family the very next
Very
day.
nice day.
And these touch and go meetings are actually 12 in number, and we conduct these meetings in first 15 days, and then there are supervised meetings, and we start moving to the next goal, which is intervention data presentation, or telling the patient why he was admitted in the rehab in the first place. The family members then write down the incidences from the life of the patient, which tell us that the drug use has been damaging and embarrassing and a very serious threat to the family integrity.
We'll take a break here and we'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Contrary to the popular belief, it is a physical disorder most closely like diabetes and heart disease. The actual problem is metabolic in nature, and this metabolic error starts in the body, not in the mind.
So it's physiological.
It's physiological to begin with, but ultimately it encroaches the psychology and the social life of the person who suffers from alcoholism. Everybody who drinks does not end up as an alcoholic. Only 10% of those will cross that invisible line into alcoholism,
So what makes
and
you
it's a
more,
nightmare.
what makes you more susceptible to actually becoming an alcoholic?
It is a genetic code basically. There are a lot of triggers in the environment also. There is a psychological problem also, but the real trigger comes from the genetic code, and once that genetic code is triggered, it is never reversible. It goes
it's
on.
irreversible.
It is irreversible.
And
That
the only way
code-
to stop it then
Can
is
you
just to stop.
explain genetic code for the audience out there? What does it imply?
basically the seat of drinking is in the mind, but the seat of alcoholism is in the body. If somebody starts taking alcohol in teenage or early in life, then there are more chances of that genetic code to be triggered. But if somebody starts alcohol late in life, then probably there are less chances of that person to become
Well,
alcoholic.
presumably
ultimately.
just less time in a lifespan. The later you start anything, the less time you have for it to take effect on
No,
you
no,
anyway.
genetics is like that. If there is a genetic code and you trigger it earlier, it is going to be severe. Real thing comes from the genetics. But if there is a genetic code and there are environmental factors also very rich towards that, then definitely the person is going to suffer from alcoholism.
So there's a clear difference between people who are alcoholics and people who like to have a drink or two. There's
Absolutely. If somebody drinks a drink or two, and if it is not a problem, then it is not a problem. But if the drinking starts generating problems, then definitely it is a journey towards alcoholism.
Welcome back. Abdul Rahman Sadakat, I would start with you. You have particularly got training from King's College London and in addiction psychology. I would ask you, why do some addiction centers, rehabilitation centers, try to evade those meetings? Is there a hidden agenda? Are they trying to hide something under the carpet? What are their preconceived notions?
I have actually asked this question firsthand from different rehabilitation centers across the world. What they explained to me is that could be a bunch of reasons because of which they are reluctant making the family meet the patient. One of which is the withdrawal symptoms that the patients are facing at the time. Due to the exit of drug from the body, the patient is not in the similar condition what he was a day before. Rehabs are reluctant that the families will see their patient, their loved one, in this physical condition and would like to withdraw the patient from the treatment.
Because family is in habit of thinking negative about their patient, because they receive some kind of bad news every day about their loved one, and they think a lot of negative things about their patient even when he is in the rehab, and they would like to see their patient, but the treatment center is reluctant because they have to answer certain questions then. So it is on the part of the rehab center bring about some progress within 24 hours and look after the patient in the best possible manner, and when the family meets the patient, they also understand certain things if the rehab center does her best.
So you think that certain rehab centers are shabby and their conditions are not hygienic?
Obviously, all over the world this is a problem, that most of the rehab centers are not up to the mark, and rather it takes a long time for an addiction treatment center to mature. This is not something that you can do overnight. It takes years and years of experience and hard work and smart work to develop into a mature rehab center. It is the most difficult specialty all over the world, because this is the only disease which is labeled as cunning and baffling. So the patient is trying to hurt his treatment all the time. He is trying to get out of the rehab center, whatever he talks about with the professionals or the family members, that there is something important outside the rehabilitation center that I need to do. And this is something which is not going to work, this is useless, I don't want to go through this.
Now I can manage.
I can
done
manage
with it.
of my
I've already
own.
quit.
Yes, I've already.
I'm
quit.
done. Deal.
I'm done. Within 72 hours he's done.
Just to understand the same thing in the rehabilitation center, the very first day patient won't be well and active and mobile and doing everything normally like he was doing while he was doing the drug.
The family have a trust deficit
Yes.
because they have been interacting with their patient for a long time, and patient has been lying and deceiving them on many occasions. He has been promising, so that the family learns this new behavior, that family feels difficulty in trusting the alien professionals in the rehab.
You wanted to point out certain things.
I would like to say that there are certain protocols about touch and go meeting. Family has to learn these. Family asked to not ask the dirty questions. Question can, all those questions which can sabotage the treatment. The why question. Did you eat well? Did you sleep well? How
Are you happy here?
Are you happy here?
Are you satisfied with
Have
the
you
treatment?
adjusted here? And all kind
Do
of
you like the
questions.
doctors?
Did you like the doctors? Are you happy here? Have you adjusted?
So the family should not invite patient to criticize. He is already doing that effectively. Sometimes patient will suddenly come up with something like this, that I have constipation for the last 2 days, and they have not done anything about it.
I have
And he has
difficulty in
not
sleeping.
mentioned
Yes.
this to the doctors
Yes.
earlier,
Yes.
and the family suddenly becomes emotional
He
about
probably
it.
doesn't
look
even
at
have
the-
constipation. He doesn't have constipation. He'll create stuff in the moment because it's a limited time window that he has gotten to make stuff up and convince the family.
Sometimes I have seen patients throwing some water on their face a
Yes.
little bit and showing that it is some kind of sweating,
Yeah.
and they have
So when we are
perspiration.
This,
Sometimes
this,
with
this one time,
manipulation-
a patient of mine, when I asked him why is he not properly dressed, he was
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
if I will be in this condition, they'll take me home. He gave me an outright answer. He was like, if I am well dressed and showered and clean, they'll see that I'm fine. So
They
I
have
don't.
tried their level best to manipulate their family, to sabotage the treatment. They can
And
do
we
everything.
can't blame them because they are going through an emotional condition.
Yes.
Drug use is a psychological decision, but addiction is a brain disorder. Once somebody is into addiction, it is not a matter of mind, it is a matter of the brain. When somebody is deep into addiction, certain neurotransmitters push him to seek for drug, not seek for treatment, because the treatment seeking behavior is hardly seen in drug addicts. They would always seek to do more drugs, and the family needs to create a treatment seeking behavior in their loved one. Family doesn't have to ask their loved ones not to use drugs, rather
Yes.
they need to ask that they should go and get help, because the treatment seeking behavior ultimately leads to abstinence and sobriety.
Mr. Ramshah, I would like to ask you a question, you being an occupational therapist. Certain patients who come here in our treatment center in Willing Ways are now very young, they're teenagers, so they're out of their school, so they say that you have put me in this treatment center, it's going to turn my world upside down. So how do you think the family should handle these kind of occupational related or educational related queries of the patient?
What families are taught about is something that Dr. Siddharth calls vitally important goals. That at this point, given the patient's condition, the vitally important goal is to seek treatment
Right.
and reinforce these treatment-seeking behaviors in the patient. And that's why these family meetings are also important, so that the family can convey this message from the therapist onto the patient and help them ease their anxieties about what they're missing out outside of rehab. And it also helps them, and to also tell them that through this treatment they will eventually gain more functionality in their life and move on to succeed in their both in their occupational and educational careers.
See, health emergency trumps everything else.
Yes.
And drug addiction is one of the emergent kind of problems regarding health. So whenever a patient is into drug addiction, it is more important than their work, it is more important than their education.
So the
It's more-
wildly important goal is the rehabilitation.
And the
Rehabilitation.
family is supposed to support the patient in treatment, and supporting the patient in treatment means something like that if your son is studying in a university and you are supporting him in education, you will support him to be in the university, not at home. So whatever support you provide to somebody has to be geared towards the end result, that the person is ultimately supported and successful. And a person who is in the rehab center would definitely graduate from the rehabilitation center when the family supports him in the best possible manner. It's like they show up and they talk to the patient, they tell him that they love him, that is why they come. And the other thing is that they would mention certain things in the past that patient has been doing and warranting treatment. The last and the final thing that they have to communicate is that they are going to help him in only one thing, and that is getting rid of the drugs and having an abstinent and sober life.
Mr. Amna Nawaz, how many people at one point can visit the patient indoors, and are children allowed?
Actually, we prefer to make a recovery team for the patient, and it consists of the only immediate family members who are supposed to live with the patient after the treatment. And initially, we usually prefer that only those family members should meet the patient who are less codependent.
There is somebody in the household who will sabotage the treatment process unconsciously. You have to recognize that weak link, because the strength of the family is always measured by the strength of that weak link. So we need to focus on the weak link, and the weaker or the emotional or the codependent family member should not see the patient early on. Rest of the family members should continue to meet him and convey his wishes to the patient. But ultimately, when the weak link is strong enough and the patient is stable enough, then you can allow the weak link also to come forward and meet the patient and play his therapeutic role in the recovery of the loved
And
one.
that
But-
weak link is actually the favorite family member of the patient actually, and he
He can
insists to allow
Bring
that,
that person.
member to meet me, because he thinks that he can help him in getting discharged.
I mean, Mr. Myla, how would you explain codependency? Because we have been hearing this term time and again. Weak link, codependent. What is codependency?
Emotional dependence to the chemical dependent person, simply.
It's a kind of addiction.
It's a
Like
relationship
patient is
addiction,
addicted to the drug,
Drugs.
and the
Mhm.
codependent is addicted to the patient. He has a love-hate kind of relationship. Whenever somebody has a love-hate relationship, technically we call it codependency. It's an emotional disorder, and the hallmark of this disorder is ongoing low-grade chronic depression.
Yes, true.
There is a question particularly geared towards you. When a patient is admitted in a medical ward or a surgical ward, how is it different than a patient being admitted in a rehab?
There is a lot of difference between the two situations. When a patient goes into a medical or a surgical ward, he goes there motivated by his pain
Yes.
and the consequences that can result from the illness he has been suffering from. But with a drug addict and alcoholic, he is suffering from an illness which is also pleasurable part of the time, but he is still an alcoholic and suffering from alcoholism. The patient goes through pain every day, but he goes through pleasure as well. But it is the family that goes through pain all the time and every day. So once we talk to the patient and present a certain intervention data from his life, and all of us do it together as a family member, the patient is likely to understand and his denial will be penetrated, and ultimately he will understand that it is a devastating disease. And doing drugs 7 days a week, which is a compulsion in addiction, is very painful for people. Even if you like something, but you would not like to do it every day. So this one
So they
thing,
must promise themselves almost every day to quit it in the pain time period, and then go back to it when they want, when they are having physical
They have to
withdrawals.
justify their action also. All the time they are in the pain, and they have to give some reasons to their usage.
I would like to mention one thing here, that family members think that he would not like to quit drugs, but this is wrong. All drug addicts and alcoholics every day wish that some magic could happen and they could quit. We have to believe that our loved one wants to quit, but he is helpless and he is hopeless at the same time. So we have to provide him help and the hope. So when we do these two things, his ideas start changing, and then we are on the same page and we struggle together.
Many times actually we have come across patients who have made attempts on their own, and for some limited time period they have tried to quit the drug, but then came back to it with more throttle. So let's say if somebody was doing it every day, they'd quit for 5-6 days, then go back to it with more intensity. So they do want to quit, but they're just helpless in the face of drug, that they keep coming back to it.
While the supervised meetings of the patient and the family are going on, are there other meetings going on between just the therapist and the family, therapist and the patient as well?
Yes, during the touch and go meetings, first of all we prepare the family for these touch and go meetings. Then before each touch and go meeting, we talk about today's plan with the family, and then the family goes along with the therapist to meet their loved one, and there is an interaction, and some of that is okay and some of that is not that okay. And then we come back to the counseling room and talk about the today's meeting, and we talk about the positive and the negative aspects which we saw during the meeting, and we suggest humbly to the family to amend his behavior the very next day. This is how we come to know the psychodynamics of the addiction that thrives on enabling and provoking. These are two vicious behaviors the family needs to get rid of, because when they do so, it becomes an easier way to the sobriety and the recovery. So it has to be sandwiched like that. Touch and go meetings are sandwiched between the two meetings with the family, one before and one after.
And then the patient is also given some feedback.
Yes, sometimes patient is given the feedback by the counselor, but at other times the other patients in the facility also guide him and give him feedback about his meetings, and they also prepare him in a nice manner as to how he has to go through his touch and go meetings to make his treatment smooth and make himself comfortable. It is a great help that a new patient that comes in the environment of the rehabilitation center, before the first touch and go meeting, some other patient would kindly come and elaborate the process of the touch and go meetings, and there is nothing mysterious about it. We don't need to hide anything from the patient. Basically, we need to bring all the essential elements of treatment into the open in front of all the stakeholders, including the patient. So our policy in Willing Ways is to be open, be honest and be transparent. Ultimately, we see honesty is the best policy. It works very quickly and there is a therapeutic change very quickly in the patient.
How often does this happen, that the patient becomes too violent with the family or abusive, or the patient tries to fall down or cry or throw tantrums and stuff like that?
It used to happen years ago, but with this kind of experience that we have in Willing Ways, and there are so many professionals who are helping each other, there is hardly anything like that, because we can predict it, and what you can predict, you can amend it. So sometimes a patient cries and grabs hold of his mother.
It's rare.
It's rare.
Currently
It's rare, but it's with those who are younger tend to do it now more often, that they just hug them or grab them and ask them not to leave. But it has gotten rare, and the families have already been told that these are the cues when you will choose to leave.
And
So
also the structure of the touch and go meeting is such that the family is nearer the door of the room and the patient is nearer to his bed, and in between there are 2-3
professional.
counselors and professionals who would sense something ugly coming from the side of the patient and would hint to the family to leave.
Family also asked to avoid the physical contact to decrease
Okay,
the
yes,
Yes,
that is
that's
very
very
important, that
important.
we advise family
Yes.
not to hug patients, particularly on the first touch and go meeting, because when the family hugs the patient, they are also melted from within,
Yes.
and their emotional outburst may sabotage the
And
first.
they can forget the message who they are going to say to the patient.
So the supervised meetings, later on, the patient can come down to the room of the counselor or the psychologist, and then their interaction transforms. Does it change with passage of time?
Yes, normally we have 12 touch and go meetings, but they can be more or less, because next we move on to the structured supervised meeting, which are conducted in the professional's room. Patient comes down well dressed. They are lengthy meetings as compared to touch and go meetings, which are only from 3 to 5 minutes, at the most 10 minutes. The structured meetings, supervised meetings in the counseling office are of 90 minutes duration.
The
And-
family and the counselor and the patient, they're all together
Yes.
for that long.
Yes, they are there for a long time, and that also exhausts them emotionally, and then emotionality is set aside, and we move on to the real logical treatment, which is scientific in nature, and gradually we put the emotions aside and move on to the real thing, the real therapeutic treatment that goes on.
Well, we'll take a break here.
If society looks at somebody who is drinking in an alcoholic fashion, the society does not know that he is suffering from a physiological disease. Society looks at him as a person who has very weak will, who is evil and wicked. So there are hardly any chances of help for him like a sick person. He will be always looked at a person who is creating problem. The second part of your question is, why is he not getting help? The answer to this question is that the hallmark of alcoholism is denial. By very nature of this disease, he cannot look at what is happening to him. This is something very, very serious, because this person is suffering from alcoholism, and he is under the influence of a toxin which is chloroform-like. Like in normal people, when somebody drinks, the ultimate end products of alcohol are water and carbon dioxide, and these are two harmless products, and ultimately they are eliminated from the body as such. But if somebody is suffering from alcoholism, he is not producing carbon dioxide and water, he is producing a very, very toxic substance which is aldehyde. It is closely resembling the chloroform. So if somebody is accumulating chloroform while he is drinking more and more, and ultimately he may pass out also, then you don't expect from him that he will look at him. Normally people cannot look at themselves,
Anyway.
but if somebody is suffering from alcoholism, he can definitely not look at him, and the consequences his drinking is generating.
This is very interesting, that what you're saying is that I mean, seriously, I thought that it was all in the mind, that they're
No.
in denial, but
No.
it's because of the physiological aspect. By physiological, we mean that he's actually on chloroform as such.
It's
and that-
chloroform poisoning.
Well, you know,
poisoning.
just like you would not be able to function and to be able to understand whatever's going on around you, of course you're going to be in denial.
It is a mindset which leads somebody to drink, but it is the body which creates trouble, and there is a metabolic disorder, and it is the body which is vulnerable, it is not the mind. So the seat of alcoholism is in the body, and the seat of drinking is in the mind.
Welcome back. Dr. Sadakat, I wanted to ask you about therapeutic meetings and how do they go about?
Actually, every inch of interaction between the counselors and the family, or between the counselors and the patient, or between the family and the patient is therapeutic, or has to be therapeutic. We have to talk about issues. It has to be about the outcome. It has to be about the treatment. Family learns to interact and communicate with the patient because they have been lagging behind the patient for a long time, and patient has been fooling around with the family and telling lies, and he is in denial as well. But now the situation is different. He is attending the group meetings, one-to-one sessions right from the beginning of the indoor treatment, and the family is learning how to say no, because family tends to say yes when they actually want to say no, or initially they say no and then they say yes. Usually the previous practice is when they say no, the patient is irritated and agitated, and ultimately the family says yes, or the family also becomes irritated and angry, and it becomes a battle of arguments, and then there is a silence, and then they don't face each other for many days. But in these therapeutic meetings, first of all, family learns to say no. They plan it, they talk about certain subjects from the life of the patient and tell him not to do it again, and tell him to agree with them on certain points, and they talk about family values. Values are things that we do in our families which are good or bad, and values can lead to devastating results. All values are not good values, so we study values in the families also, because there are sometimes good values which are not good for addiction, and one of them is having a loving attitude or saving the patient from the consequences of the drug use. Normally there is a value in the family that we help each other, but when a loved one who is addicted to alcohol or other drugs is arrested by the police, and we think that it is mandatory to help him come out of the lockup immediately, and for that unfair means are used. But now we teach them that you have to be assertive and you have to act on merit. If anybody can benefit from that pain that comes from drug use, it is the patient, not the family. Patient deserves to go through that pain so he can connect that drug use has devastating consequences. It has painful consequences. But if patient enjoys the pleasures of the drugs and the family takes the pain on their shoulder, it would be a good formula for the patient to continue like that. So ultimately family comes to know that patient can benefit from the reality, patient can benefit from the pain that comes out of the use of the drugs.
This is actually the challenging thing for the family as well, that how should we respond to it.
Actually, when the patients are here and the families are here, and we are trying to put the new skills in them, and you offer a lot of programs like
Yes.
assertive training, 7 habits,
Tough love
and
program.
tough love
Crucial
program,
conversation.
crucial conversation, how to get rid of the shame that they have. You're offering plethora of programs. So aren't you actually trying to brainwash the patient and the family, but for a better purpose, for a higher
Actually,
purpose?
the very word
Word has
brainwash
negativity.
is not
Negative.
the right word. We actually illuminate them, we actually enlighten them, and we do what is suggested internationally.
Giving the new structure of the life. We are giving the new rules of the life to the family and the
Some-
patient.
Moreover, we challenge the patient, see what the experts say in certain situations. We also invite family members to find solutions for themselves and find the principles of addiction treatments in America. They give you guidelines about treatments, and anybody can go
Yes.
and search
Yes,
this document.
We are giving the educational material to the family and patient also.
We have about 5,000 videos on YouTube, and there are different topics and there are different needs that those videos fulfill.
Videos, handouts are available for the family and the
Yes,
patient.
definitely.
Books,
In
videos,
case of-
handouts.
In case of a loved one in addiction, we do tell families what to do and what not to do. We guide them over a time period. It's just that the word brainwashing is connected with negativity, and that's why patients tend to use it so that they can pressurize the family into not doing so, not doing the therapeutic behavior with them.
So can we call it like, for the sake of present day digital age, that we are trying to put the new apps, we are trying to get rid of the malware,
Exactly.
and we are putting in the proper
The new app of communication,
see,
effective communication.
It's similar to how people often say to a psychologist that don't use your psychology on me. There's nothing wrong about using psychology, but
Everybody
they try
should
to
do that.
pressurize you into not doing so, and just get you so conscious about what you're doing right that they want to get something out of it.
I remember.
And they also invite the families to deal with them
Yes.
between two of them,
Yes.
and leave these professionals
Yes, yes.
alone.
Anytime they demand
the fact
that.
of the matter is, they then resent about those days when their family used to discuss things with them, and they never agreed to that, and they wish that those days were back and we could agree to what family has been saying. But now they are in the rehabilitation process, and they are sometimes in a fix as to how to save their face and how to change their behavior, because addiction is something which requires a lot of effort to change.
And it must be frustrating for them as well that they can no longer manipulate their family members as easily as they could do that
very
otherwise.
I
frustrating.
remember
Yes.
one of my patients once said to me that, ma'am, please don't meet my parents for at least 10 days. They will again become my same old parents who used to pamper me
Yes.
and never said no to me.
And this is also true that after the treatment, if the family is not in the follow-up, the family will revert back to their
Yes.
old behavior. So we recommend follow-up for the patients and
the
as well
family
as
as
for the
well.
families. And our follow-up patients come along with their families. We talk to them in a group setting where currently being treated patients are there, their families are also there, all the professionals are there, and we are communicating with all these stakeholders.
Ultimate goal of the family meetings and interaction is when family or patient become able to discuss the undiscussable thing.
The family even cannot talk about the drug openly. They would
Use the
talk
other words.
about, they won't use the word alcohol,
So much
they
shame.
won't they won't use the word heroin or crystal meth, or this thing has
Yes,
spoiled
yes,
your life,
yes.
or this thing has done that thing. So there is an elephant in the house. That elephant is addiction, and we need to name it, and like we need to name it as a project, and then we fix a starting date, and then there is no ending date. We keep on improving upon the treatment, and the family gets better and prosperous, and ultimately a family starts loving the process of recovery along with the patient.